morning, everybody. Like, this is a filled room. This is definitely the biggest room I've ever talked in. But let's see what we can do today. So I'm going to talk about high security cluster operations with Cilium and Kyverno. Probably quite a few people will already know about these tools. I don't know if you've ever used them before. And that's also one of the reasons why I'm trying to do like a lot of live demoing here, just like to get a feel for what we can do with these tools. And yeah, just have a little bit of fun together. And let's see how it goes. Of course, the general about slide that everybody has. This is me, Simon Lackerbauer. You can find like some links on there on GitHub and Sirhat and stuff like that. I'm currently not super active, to be honest, on like the public open source community, because some of like my employers and customers right now have always been, like I said here, in like the financial service industries, a little bit more on-prem and don't put anything on the internet, basically. Currently employed by Agility, a small consulting company here in Switzerland that does mainly like cloud platforms with data and analytics. It's like our main thing. If you want to, you can check us out. It's going to be the last slide mentioning anything about my employer. Yeah, so I basically started this talk, or the idea of this talk, because like what I do most of the time has to do with these data analytics platforms. But just security has always been like a little bit of a passion project. And if you're working in these industries, you're talking to security teams and like compliance teams all the time, and trying to like get ahead of the flow a little bit and just tell them already, oh, we could do this, we could do that, and try to use these tools and maybe they will help you. Yeah, is a little bit of my thing. So I hope this talk adequately will tell you about everything that I put in there. So we can start with like a relatively easy question. Why is Kubernetes security an issue anyways? Like, don't we already have netpols and you have namespacing and it's never been like a super focus, right, on of the project itself to be like super high security from the get-go, but there is a lot of stuff you can already do with within security in like a Spark standard Kubernetes cluster. Here we can talk about like this classic quote, or I don't really know if it's classic because I've tried to find the person who actually first mentioned it. Security is always excessive until it's not enough. You feel like always, oh, security is gonna make my life harder as like as a developer or even a platform engineer who tries to deploy something. And so you think like, I don't need that. But then something happens and suddenly you're like, oh, why didn't we think of that beforehand? So the most likely guy who this could be from is Robbie Sinclair, from like an energy provider, something like another company who would think about these things more in depth, from Australia, but who knows? And maybe like in your work, if you work at a big company or if you're also doing consulting, you might have heard of all these kind of like standards, FIPS, PCI, DSS, SOC 2s, GDPR, C5s, HIPAA, all like abbreviations, of course, of kind of standards, Federal Information Processing Standard or stuff like that. And you always ask yourself, okay, like there are these standards, do I now have to read through everything and try to implement all these security features on my own? And maybe you don't have to do that, but your compliance department definitely has heard of them and they will make you implement everything. And now it's just a question of like which tool are you using or what is going to be helpful to you basically during that time. And because we're starting basically with the Cilium part of this, added another quote from NetSuite. The idea that security starts and ends with the purchase of a prepackaged firewall is simply misguided. I don't know who he was talking to, but yeah, there are probably some executives that I've talked to before who would think that just put it all in the firewall and then we're going to be safe. So now we're just going to start with Cilium. Cilium is basically yet another, or like actually one of the earlier like eBPF tools, because it's by now, it's created 2016, so now it's 2025, 9 years. That is like fairly mature already for a tool, which also means that a lot of these older companies maybe that often move a little bit slower will have heard about it and will think, hey, that's actually a cool tool. We have like we can get support from a company for that. Let's use that to implement some of these requirements that we have because of some kind of regulatory environment that we have. So this is like really just a short introduction. It can do the classic layer 3, layer 4, like firewalling, opening ports, opening like 2 IP addresses. But it can also do a little bit more stuff that, of course, some classic firewalls also do layer 7 policy enforcement, for example. It's just like cloud native and running in Kubernetes, and it's very easy to configure compared to some kind of Cisco machine that you might have configured before. Yeah, and it's just like a cool little tool that we can use, and that I'm gonna introduce to you now a little bit. So what we first need to do is, of course, get like a demo cluster started here. I'm using Kind for that. I just have like a small config that basically has the name in it and like how many nodes it's gonna start. You can do basically everything, like Minikube or whatever, K3s, whatever floats your boat, use for that. If you wanna try out afterwards, like the code. But I feel like the Kind, like in Docker, always just works super nicely with everything, and it gives you this like real cluster feel. So we have this cluster started now, running here locally on my machine. Has not been started before, so just fresh. So everything that we had in there, or that is going to be in there. We can look in there real quick. Has not been there before, so it can be like quite clear. There's still some stuff starting up because I'm gonna install Cilium right away, which is also really easy. Of course, you would usually not do it like that if you're in like one of these environments. You like use the Helm charts and you put in your actual like configuration. There's like a lot of configuration that you can do in theory, but for like a small demo environment like this, we can just do it like that. So here, already been started. It says like, oh, it's finished, like it's installed everything. We can just see here, see the pods are still like starting up. Cilium will like start up pods for the different resources that it needs, like operator on like the envoy on like a per node basis. So it will take a little while to really get everything started up. You can see over here what it is looking like right now. So let's wait just like a little bit. You can already see here like different parts basically it comes with. So there's always like this general like Cilium pod. There's an envoy pod too that we will see later on with an example with a layer 7 like rule that you can implement. And it's probably still like downloading some stuff here. Pulling the image. But we can already go on forward a little bit. We can already also start the Hubble UI, which we're going to look at later as well. This has been this has changed a bit between like the current version and previous versions. I feel like where like more it was like more types of things you could see in the Hubble UI, but this one is very clean and easy to use, at least. So yeah, also starting that one and seeing Cilium is still like slowly coming up now. There's some errors, of course, because it's the live presentation now. Went much faster before. Okay, but here we're coming now. Everything is slowly going into the running state. And it's changing from red and orange to blue, which is exactly what we need. Let's see here again. Oh yeah, so this is looking much better. It's just the Cilium CLI tool can give you status. You can do some configuration with it. It's not like too important because most of the stuff that we want to do is of course like in code. We're gonna have YAML files that define everything, and I only really use it like if I have something on my own for like these status checks, just to see real quick the overall status of the cluster. Okay, that we already did. So I'm gonna start with like a very like easy introductory thing that a lot of security and compliance departments are gonna quite like, I guess, because they always want to have like zero trust environments, right? And it's kind of cool if you have like an identity and not only your not only your application authorization, authentication and stuff is like connected to your identity, but even on the networking side already, like you can use your identity to even be allowed into some kind of network. So how we're gonna check this out, how it works, is basically we have an endpoint selector in the beginning of this like Cilium network policy, right? This is what it generally looks like. If you're on the namespace version, then you just have like an endpoint selector. What is this policy going to apply to? In this example, it's going to be like all the resources that have this label. Like in our example, like a pod could be something else that has this label, which is just called destination. So we're going to start up a pod with that label later on, and then it's going to like check whether there's ingress coming into that that resource, whether it has attached a specific service account. And if it does, then the ingress is allowed. And once you define like an ingress, which all the other ingresses are disallowed. So it's like a deny all except for what you explicitly configured in here. Yeah, so we're gonna now create this service account. We're gonna create some pods that have it attached and don't have it attached, and just see what's happened. What's happening. So you can see here, like in this file, I defined some more resources that I didn't show before, but because it's mostly interesting to you, what the actual policy looks like, right? So we have now a namespace for this example created. We published the network policy in there. We have a service account created. We have one pod that has that access service account attached created. We have another pod that just uses the default service account. We have a deployment for this destination that also will create a pod, a small config map, and for the Nginx that's in there because it will return something, and then the service so we can talk to it. And now we're just gonna go, let's see first if everything is running. So what I was just talking about here can go in here, just in this example namespace, like we just saw. Okay, yeah, it's all all really there just as expected. And now let's see if we try to like call this this service from the pod that has the actual. All right, let's look here just to be like really sure it actually does have that that service account attached. We can see, yeah, it does, and the other one doesn't. There's just a default service account. So you believe me, it really is only that is basically the difference between those two. If we try now to connect with a normal curl to this destination service, we'll see, yeah, like the Nginx will just return, yeah, hello from port 80. Probably if you actually try to do this in like a real example, use 443. But for here, I think it's good enough just to see that it is possible in general. And then if you do the same thing from like the has no access, the other service account, then it's terminating because it just like on the network layer already, it's not allowed to connect over to the other pod. So that works very well, I guess. So let's just go on to the next example. It's transparent encryption. Now there are like a lot of service mesh like Istio and stuff that can do the TLS transparent encryption as well, right? But if you do it with Cilium, you can like have all the like pod-to-pod networking just encrypted with WireGuard in itself. So MTLS in the Istio case, WireGuard in the Cilium case, which is the same kind of transport encryption. Maybe you get some kind of performance boost from that. I wouldn't really count on it, but it does make a little bit of a difference which encryption you are using. So let's install that real quick. Installing like TCP dump on one of the nodes, so we can just quickly see that it's actually doing something on this Cilium WireGuard interface that it injected into like this pod, for example. We let this run for a while and see what's coming up. Yeah, there's traffic going over there, and this already like this works because in the beginning I installed just Cilium with the appropriate configuration on the command line there. You can put it in your Helm chart, and then it will just automatically, as these things tend to work, install WireGuard, and you have encryption on like in transport for whatever you need. You can like check another check mark on the boxes where it says, oh, you need to have encryption for in transport. You can't do the at rest yet, but it's a networking tool. So that's just another issue. Good. Then like very classic, of course. It's like not too deep as well. But what we always want to do, like you don't want to fill out like IP lists and work too much with subnets and everything. I mean, sometimes you have to if you really want to open up like and connect to parts of your network, of course. But if you're like on this level, if you just want to have some application running in a cluster or some specific pod that you already know, okay, this one only needs to talk to this other service, then you can very easily, without like having too much dependence on that other service, that it stays at the same IP and whatever, just do a pattern match on the actual domain name, and have it be able to connect without really much else. What is also in here, because I don't have a cluster policy for that, and like it's a demo, I have to open up 53 for DNS requests first, so it can actually find out where it needs to go, like on the fly. But if you run like a cluster in production, you obviously could have like one policy that does that for everything in the namespace or with the labels that your application uses, and then it will also just work everywhere. And there's the actual like pattern match. Like you can match to just the domain name. You can just pattern match to subdomains with a wildcard. And here I will just like let this specific part that is here, up here, matching on no Google for you. Another part that we're going to start up in a moment. We'll only let it like connect to like the service or the services and APIs that Serhat provides, and nothing else. So they can't just Google anything and do anything else. Okay, we start a namespace again. We created this policy now. I just showed you. And now let's run this one. And as expected, Google doesn't work. So we're thinking, ooh, my networking doesn't work. Oh, I think I forgot a slide in here. Or we're just gonna go directly on there. What's it? Okay, let's try the same thing with Serhat. And there we get something back. And good thing as well, because we defined 443 only in this case at least, but the same thing will happen. Just can't connect when we try to access port 80. Yes. We are still inside the presentation. Okay. Good. Let's go to example number 4, which is layer 7 protocol aware policies. So this is of course like some of the real cool stuff that we can do, and for that I'm going to use like the Cilium online demo as well, because it's really fun to use it. And that one will create us a Death Star, a TIE fighter, and an X-Wing. That's like a Star Wars themed thing. And we will also, we can run this real quick and look at it. The X-Wing is still creating. Luke still has to go in there, but now these are all here. And we will be able to see that the Death Star has some API endpoints open. And especially it has this request landing API endpoint open. So right now, everything is just open. Everybody can connect to everything in the default namespace. So if the TIE fighter tries to request landing with a post, then it lands. So that's perfect. That's what we want, right? TIE fighter, Death Star, they fit together. If we now want to put something as an X-Wing into the exhaust port, on the other hand, that is actually something that we do not want as a Death Star, because what will happen is that. So the Death Star has exploded. And this is exactly like what you don't want to see in this type of situation. And so we're going to fix it. We're going to actually like help the Empire for once. You can see here, we will match the label of Empire. And then let's attach this Cilium network policy that will deny the Death Start. Okay, that's like a little bit typo. The Death Start destruction, which is how I always call my policies, like allow in the beginning or deny if it's like something specific that has to be denied. So we're gonna match on all the Empire pods or whatever comes there that wants to connect. That is of course not enough, because they could just steal or like run something in such an Empire pod, and we would be in this situation with like it's an older code, but it checks out. So no, we also will, even for the Empire, only allow them to post to this request landing endpoint. And that means if the rebellion steals a TIE fighter, they can still not go put something in that exhaust port. So let's add that to the cluster. And let's try the same thing again as before. So perfect. One thing is already working, that the thing that we want to work, and that is the TIE fighter can still request landing and land. But if we try the same thing as before with the X-Wing, and now run this again, of course, we will terminate again, and we will not get a connection. And as we saw before, if somebody gets that TIE fighter and wants to do the same thing, then we get an access denied on that. We are allowed to basically reach a little bit further because we are part of the organization empire, but like at the actual API, we will get request denied or access denied by Cilium in front of the API. Now, let's quickly start the Hubble and look over the Hubble, like the observability. I'm gonna do that here. The observability layer that comes with Cilium, basically. So we can look here in our example what happened before. Here we can see what we had in the beginning, like coming in here, and in the beginning we got actually forward, right? We could reach the destination, but then after we added the policy, it says here, I hope it's readable. Yeah. It says here, like now policy is denied. And this way, like with the filters and everything, you can figure out relatively quickly if you have any kind of problem with your Cilium, if you don't know why something gets denied or why it gets allowed or where it's coming from. You see it here as a nice, nice graph between different nodes, and it will just show you everything. Okay, so we're already a little bit late, I guess, so we will just go on a little bit faster now. So in conclusion, right, it has this like quick injection of performance, very light performance impact injection, eBPF for performance. It allows this identity-aware microsegmentation on like a layer 7, or with the identities that we saw before. Already has data in transit encryption coming with it, layer 7 egress controls too, and it really comes with the Hubble already that will allow you to just really go in there and also like export the log files, look somewhere else in there to help you see what's going on in your cluster and what is not. So let's quickly jump to Kyverno. So we're now leaving the networking space and going into the policy enforcement space. The Kyverno is not quite as old as Cilium already, but it's also mature enough that definitely basically every organization can use it. It functions as like a dynamic admissions controller, so it will like match your policies that you have in there against what is coming in there on your like resource definitions. And if it doesn't match, then it can deny it, or it can write a report out, like audit it, so you can later see what would have been denied, which is very, very important, I think, to do in the beginning. Like you install this first, and you put everything in audit, and you can just see, okay, this one we need to like fix this part of the application, and we need to fix that part of the application. And afterwards, like if the reports are empty, then you put it in enforce, and then nobody can do any bad thing. Like not nobody, but the most common bad things will then be blocked before you can even deploy your resource and persist it to etcd. Yes. And we have exemptions too. So if you're like your app really cannot deal with something, or you have to have a pod that has like a root, then you can always exempt that specific resource, run it still, but only for that resource. Good. Okay, let's run the Helm install for Kyverno as well. Works almost as quickly. We can see here again that is coming up. So we have these 4 controllers: the emission controller, background controller, cleanup controller, reports controller. Some of you will see in the, where is it? In the examples now that we have here a background true. So that means that like it will run basically an audit, even if you enforce it for stuff that is already there, and then you can like get the report later on, but that uses the background controller for some reason, not the reports controller, because that's only for the audit stuff, but it's not too important. Now let's see us just enforcing some labels at first, because if we saw before with Cilium, we want to like allow some stuff that has a specific label, then we have to enforce in the beginning as well everything to like use these labels. It's always best practice, right, to label your stuff that you deploy quite a lot. And so this way, like you would do in like in a cloud provider, you will already be able to enforce this. And so here we just want to have every like pod that gets deployed have a label app Kubernetes.io name. It's a classic, well-known label. So we will now require this. So it's created. We have the policy. And now we're going to try to deploy this pod, which, as you might notice, does not have the label. And what does it say? That's like one of the cool things with Kyverno as well. Like you can run this, of course, in your CI/CD pipeline or something, but always like return back this really nice error message. It will tell you, yeah, it denied the request, and why? Because like this specific policy had this specific rule, like require labels is the policy, check for labels is the rule, and like it validated against this because this specific label is required. So everybody can really understand if you get this error message, okay, what is wrong? Which is why we are gonna fix this real quick. Put the labels in, apply it again, and suddenly, immediately it works, right? Because we had the label in there. Still example 1. Okay. So example 2, we will auto-inject some resource limits. Not always the best way to do it, but as a general idea, is definitely it's like an interesting thing to do. This is a mutating policy. So it will actually mutate like the objects afterwards. So if you forgot to put in your request limits, then it will put it in there for you. And you can override it by just putting it in there correctly. Okay, let's go through here again. And I'm going to delete the pod that I started before for the first example and just apply it again. Let's look in there real quick. What was it called? Here, Kyverno testpoa. If you look in here, you see like there's nothing saying anything about resources. So if we do this real quick, we delete it and we create it again, and then go back in here. See, it restarted 6 seconds ago. Then suddenly we have these like requests in here because it just automatically applied this configuration to your pod while it was like coming in via the admissions controller. Another relatively common thing that maybe sometimes devs will forget or something, for you want to have a specific configuration, you want to tell everybody that this is the prod environment in a variable or something, or you have like a secret, some kind of certificate or something that you just want to have in all your namespaces. So you can have another type of policy that will like generate and copy this config map that you have somewhere else into new upcoming namespaces. So that's what we're going to do here. We'll apply it again. And then we will start, apply this here, create a new namespace and see what kind of config maps are in there. And what we saw here, this config map default CM that we have in here is automatically already in this namespace as well. So that can help a lot, especially if you have like a lot of secrets and namespaces that you want to share across namespaces, then and you have automated pipelines, or you let your users at least like create namespaces themselves. They already have everything in there and can start working right away. This is a very classic one, of course. We don't want any privileged containers in general, right? Sometimes you have exceptions, that is clear, but in general, you always want to have privileged containers off, basically, that security context flag set. So we're gonna apply this one as well. We have this new pod again, and it says here, of course, the privilege is gonna be true. So let's see what happens. And again, we get this beautiful error message, like beautiful for us if we want to disallow that. Not so beautiful for the developer who thought everything is gonna deploy nicely. That will tell you, hey, this is not allowed, and if you want to allow it, then talk to your security team for an exception. And if we do that, like if we take it out, right? Then of course here, it will just create as normal, because now it's no longer requiring root. So last example for Kyverno, we're almost finished. This one is pretty cool too. Like if you do the whole SBOM stuff, the software bill of materials, and you want to like you're already signing all your commits anyway, and now you want to sign your finished images as well, and you have like your own internal public key for that, or like your own internal notary for that. Then you put in a policy here that will allow only images that are signed by your internal CA to even run on the cluster, be pulled at all. And then let's add this. Let's try to apply here. So here we get again like this image failed to verify because we wanted to get test engine X. All right, did I put that in there is the question now. Yeah. Verified says it's a container error. Let's see real quick. Just verify image. So the unverified stopped. Do we see it now correctly? The verified didn't work as well, so that's what can happen during a live demo. I don't know why. It just it doesn't cannot run pause. That is weird, because I think before I ran pause. But be that as may, it can work, and it's a really cool thing. So I hope you just believe me in this way. So okay. Then I was asked originally to have 10 minutes more. I didn't think it would be this little much time. So I added another slide on Tetragon. You can read it on your own time, I think, because we are not going to need it anymore. It's already 12:09. So thank you all for your time. This only works because of present term, which is like this terminal emulator where you can run code real quick. So it's super good for like all these like live demo type stuff. Source code you can see as of now. And maybe we have time for one question.
Yeah, I think so. One question. Somebody? Question? You're all hungry.
Everybody wants to go to lunch. I can understand that.
Yeah, lunch is already. There is one question.
Thank you for the presentation. I was just wondering, because you show a web UI for Cilium, do you have something similar for Kyverno, except using a Grafana dashboard or something like that to have a broad overview of all your policies across your cluster, for instance?
You can like export the policy, like the reports especially. They are just also normal Kubernetes resources, and show these. I don't know if we can like have like a live view of like what got rejected at this moment by the admission controller. Probably like if you get the logs from that, because you can see it definitely in the logs of what's coming in, and you have already your basic logging tool anyways, then you would definitely be able to write like a Grafana dashboard with like Prometheus alert manager, send out something, or somebody try to do something that they're not supposed to do, and you can call them immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.